Many factors combine to create serious visual problems for the pilot of today's high-performance aircraft. Complicated instrument panels, the structure of the aircraft, congestion in takeoff and landing areas, accelerations, high altitudes, high speeds. The most important and critical of these factors is speed. Speeds greater than the speed of sound, up to 1,000 knots, are not uncommon now. In the foreseeable future, speeds up to 2,000 knots will be everyday occurrences. Even at today's speeds, a routine situation, such as sighting an object a mile away, could turn into a disaster before the pilot could do anything about it. The instant an object enters the pilot's field of view, he must see it, identify it, and perform the proper action. However, each of the tasks requires time. Usually a very short interval, but an interval that may well mean hundreds or thousands of feet traveled in a high-speed aircraft. As speeds increase, the situation can become even worse. This film will demonstrate some of the specific visual problems the aviator will encounter at the very high speeds of today's and tomorrow's aircraft. We first review some physical conditions that exist at high speeds and high altitudes and their possible effects on visual performance. When the aircraft travels at subsonic speeds, air particles are able to get out of its way. As the aircraft approaches the speed of sound, the air in front of it is compressed into a wave front which is not very dense and reaches far ahead of the aircraft. As the speed increases, the air in the wave front becomes more dense, more compressed, until at transonic speeds, the aircraft faces what amounts to an increasingly solid wall of air. The aircraft cannot pierce this wave front and is never able to get ahead of it. The flow of air in the wave front is not absolutely consistent and alike throughout the wave, and therefore produces mild rippling effects, such as can be seen in heat waves. The buildup in pressure results in the formation of shock waves. In the transonic range of speeds, the buffeting of the aircraft results from alternate collapse and reestablishment of flow due to an unstable shock wave formation. It's been reported that the buffeting may cause a momentary blurring of the pilot's vision. When the aircraft passes through this speed range of mixed airflows, it has passed through the sonic barrier. At supersonic speeds, the shock waves become more stable and form an increasingly acute angle as speed increases. The air in shock waves is optically more dense than normal air. This density produces a deviation of light rays, which apparently causes a displacement of objects from their true positions. However, this displacement is slight. There has been much discussion about vibration of jet aircraft and rocket-propelled aircraft in the supersonic speed range. However, no vibrations of intensities great enough to harm human eyes or seriously interfere with visual performance have been reported. Acceleration does not seriously interfere with the vision of an aviator who is wearing either a full-pressure suit or a good G suit. However, without such protection, an acceleration of 6 Gs will cause practically any aviator who is in an upright position to black out. Naturally, this effect is limiting on high-speed flight. We now examine some of the factors that relate to the pilot's recognition of objects in the air. These factors are greatly affected by high speeds and high altitudes. The size of the target is extremely important in relation to whether it can be seen. If the target moves away, its size decreases. If the overall illumination and contrast between the target and its background remain constant, there is a size below which the target cannot be seen. We will use this triangle to demonstrate size. Under optimum conditions of illumination, in order to see and identify an object 5 miles away, the object must be 30 feet in diameter. Some modern aircraft are less than this size when measured from a head-on profile. As distance decreases, the target size increases until it reaches the size at which it can be seen. Another characteristic related to recognition is the size of the visual field in which the target must fall in order to be seen. In studying this problem, we will use this drawing of the human eye, seen in cross-section. At maximum distance, the target must fall on the exact center of the retina, the area of best visual acuity, in order for the pilot to see it. This means the target must appear in a small cone less than 1 degree in cross-section, with the cone reaching the fovea, the exact center of the retina. A target twice the size required for central vision can be recognized in a 10-degree cone. A target 4 times the size required for central vision can be recognized anywhere in a 26-degree cone. The size of the cone in which a target can be recognized is also important because of the expanse of sky a pilot must search to detect or see a target. A pilot has no accurate way of knowing whether his scanning pattern is fine enough, whether he is covering all areas of the sky in which he can detect and recognize the target. For example, if this aircraft can be seen only by foveal vision, this scan will miss it entirely. In addition, at high altitudes, the sky is generally empty of any visual references or cues that can serve as guides for a systematic scanning pattern. If a target is seen and the eyes are momentarily shifted away from it, there is difficulty in relocating it because there are no visual cues. The boundaries and structure of the windscreen do, however, provide a little help as a visual reference. But when the pilot knows a target is nearby, he often does not see it. For example, at high altitudes and high speeds, pilots who are trying to rendezvous at a prearranged position have difficulty locating each other. Pilots have chased other aircraft for more than 100 miles, knowing from their electronic gear that they were always as near as 5 miles and sometimes less than 1 mile away, and yet were never able to sight the other aircraft visually. These failures were not due to navigational errors, but to a fundamental visual cause. Above 40,000 feet, 90% of visual sightings made by pilots are by means of glints of light flashes from the other aircraft. These glints occur only when the other aircraft maneuvers, so that reflections from its surface happen to be toward the direction of the pilot. In other words, at high altitudes and high speeds, if the other aircraft does not glint, it probably will not be seen. Another reason for failure to see other aircraft at high altitudes is that the pilot, having nothing distant to look at, unconsciously keeps his eyes in focus for objects nearby. For practical purposes, he is blind to objects in space. He may even fail to see other aircraft that are not far away. To avoid this, he should try to focus his eyes at least 20 feet away, which is the same as for infinity. In recognition and closure at high speeds, the most limiting factor with which the pilot must contend is his own lag in visual perception and the time he requires to react to the sight of the object. Specifically, this is the time it takes a pilot to see, identify, and act the instant an object enters his field of vision and immediately thereafter. There are certain physiological tasks to be performed by the pilot's eyes, brain, and muscles. Each of these tasks takes some time. In some instances, it takes only a very short interval, but an interval in which a high-speed aircraft may travel hundreds or even thousands of feet. We will examine a routine problem. A pilot, represented by this eye, is flying at 600 knots when an object enters his peripheral vision, that is, just at the corner of his eye. Before showing the problem in motion, we will use this 10-second stopwatch and will analyze what is to happen in terms of time. It will take 1/10 of a second for the sensation of the object to reach the brain. About 3/10 of a second will pass while the brain signals the eye to move, and the lens focuses the object on the fovea. Nearly 7/10 of a second will pass before the brain recognizes the object as an aircraft. 2 seconds will pass while the brain decides what to do and signals the muscles. Nearly 2.5 seconds will pass while the muscles operate the controls and the aircraft changes its flight path. This is a total of about 5.5 seconds. Not a long time under normal circumstances. But look at it again, now in slow motion. With this object motionless and this aircraft moving at 600 knots, the pilot will travel 100 feet before he even sees the object. He will travel nearly 400 feet before his fovea picks up the object. He will travel over 1,000 feet before he recognizes the object as an aircraft. He will travel a half mile before he can decide what to do. And he will travel over 4/5 of a mile before his flight path changes. But of course, both aircraft will be moving. At 600 knots, 2 pilots on opposite courses would have to see each other at a distance of 11,000 feet in order to change their flight paths in time to avoid collision. At 1,800 knots, these distances will be trebled. The pilot will travel over 1.5 miles before he can decide what to do. And he will travel over 2.5 miles before he can alter his flight path. Imagine 2 aircraft heading for each other at speeds of 1,800 knots. If they emerge from cloud cover 600 feet apart, neither pilot will see the other aircraft before they collide. If they emerge 3 miles apart, they will collide before the pilots can decide what to do. And if they emerge 5 miles apart, they are still too close to change their flight paths. Some of the time intervals used in this discussion are not subject to very careful and accurate measurement. However, if they are wrong, it is probably on the side of being too short. Except for the response time of the aircraft itself, these time intervals are due solely to the unchanging and unalterable characteristics of the normal human eye, brain, and muscles. The time intervals for recognition and action are based on conditions that are ideal. For example, a clear day, an alert, experienced pilot with no distractions, and where only the simplest of tasks are involved. These time intervals and distances could increase by several seconds and thousands of feet due to any number of complications that could occur in perfectly normal flight. For example, anything that interfered with the pilot's vision, such as a structural member of the aircraft, haze, or grayout induced by high acceleration. Any of these things could add to the time the pilot requires to see and recognize an object in the sky. Additional problems of time and distance arise when a pilot performs a relatively quick and simple task, such as glancing down at a flight instrument. By the time he adjusts his eyes to focus on the instrument, reads it, then shifts his eyes to the sky again, he will have traveled thousands of feet while flying blind. This can have serious consequences. For example, the pilot traveling at several hundred knots glances at his altimeter. Another aircraft coming out of the clouds a mile away will be on top of him before he even knows it's there. The reason is simple. To look at the instrument and readjust the eyes to the interior illumination takes about 8/10 of a second. To recognize the instrument reading takes another 8/10 of a second. To look up and readjust to the outside distant focus takes another 8/10 of a second. A total of nearly 2.5 seconds. During this time, an aircraft at 600 knots will travel 2,400 feet, while at 1,800 knots it will travel about 7,200 feet, well over a mile. The time interval could be greatly increased, where the pilot looks from a bright sky to a dimly lit panel. He must adapt to the dim light. Then he must readjust to the brightness outside. Even the short time consumed in reading instruments, in seeing and identifying objects, and in reacting properly can be vital in avoiding collisions and in intercepting other aircraft. Nearly 3/4 of recent mid-air collisions occurred in straight and level flight. Nearly all were attributed to failure of a pilot to see the other aircraft in time. In some cases, the pilot never saw the other aircraft at all. When the other aircraft was seen, the distance and rate of closure probably were misjudged, or both pilots, in attempting to turn away, turned into each other. Many near misses have been reported. The majority occurred en route during full daylight, with visibility to 15 miles or more. Near misses of today may be collisions tomorrow, when more aircraft are traveling and at greater speeds. To avoid a collision, it is important only that the other aircraft be seen in time to keep from hitting it. This includes seeing it well enough to establish its course. Where the basic problem is preventing collisions, aircraft can be designed to be as conspicuous as possible. This includes the use of paints and markings, as well as conspicuous lights. Interception involves approaching other aircraft deliberately while avoiding collisions with them. Interception includes rendezvousing with friendly aircraft. It also includes identifying unreported aircraft. And it includes attacking enemy aircraft. Most of the time, electronic equipment, both airborne and on the ground, helps a pilot to perform a mission of interception. However, a pilot usually must actually see the aircraft he is intercepting as early as possible. He must see it at a great distance so he can identify it positively. This frequently means identifying an aircraft that is painted so as to be as inconspicuous as possible. The recognition time here would probably stretch out to at least 1.5 seconds, 1,520 feet at 600 knots. The distance must also be great enough for the pilot to maneuver into an attacking position, if that becomes necessary. High speed is the single most important factor related to recognition and closure, and speeds will be even greater in the future. This makes it all the more important to make every allowance for the pilot's lag in perception and reaction time. The time intervals required to see and react cannot be reduced because they are due to the unchanging characteristics of the normal human eye, mind, and muscles. Pilot errors that have resulted in most collisions relate directly to the eye, mind, and muscles. They are failure to see the other aircraft, misjudgment of distance, and failure to take the proper corrective action in time. Thus, prevention of collisions depends on in-flight recognition of another aircraft and an awareness of the problems of closure rates of speed. There are 3 main areas of exposure to mid-air collisions: areas around congested terminals and airfields, during maneuvers, especially climbing and turning, under cruise conditions where the pilot may tend to relax and be less alert, in other words, to goof off. There are several things that you, the pilot, can do to prevent or avoid mid-air collisions and perform your missions of interception efficiently. Don't fly unless you are in good condition. Rest and relax between missions. In the air, watch your electronic gear for any clue to another aircraft or object. Note the direction indicated by the gear and look in that direction for visual contact. Your object is to see the other aircraft at the greatest possible distance. Look for glints or bright flashes from the other aircraft. Think about your speed and your rate of closure on the other aircraft, and keep on thinking about it. Know your own physical limitations. Remember, you have to see, identify, and react. This takes time. Keep alert. Look. Keep alive. Look. Remember that today's and tomorrow's aircraft are the aircraft of the thinking and looking man. So, think and look. Stay alert. And then keep on looking.